Continue our story with the Autobot prisoners being transported. They all look confused, some of them broken, some of them hurt by the truth and revelation that they saw. And in all honesty, how could they not? They just saw their entire cause be dismantled like that within a heartbeat. No one would be the same after that. And this is where Cliffjumper simply asks, so where are we going? What's gonna happen to us? Are they gonna execute us? And this is where the Autobots all kind of see that they're all moving in the same direction. And Orion simply states, no, I don't think so, but be alert. And this is where RC simply tells them to keep quiet. She doesn't want to hear anyone talking right now. They they won. Whether we see this through or not, they won regardless. This is where we pan over to Megatron and Stinger, simply overlooking them from a decent view of the, vantage point and stuff like that. And we do see Stinger's team is kind of like, I want to say right beside them, but they're at least around, kind of looking down at the Autobots and stuff. And they're just looking like, so this is like when you break a cause and win the war this easily. And I think we're letting them go out of pity. Absolutely ridiculous. And this is where Megatron simply states, ensure that our prisoners are taken home. Let them go at the border and simply handle it as you should. But do not kill any of them. But if one does get a little mouthy, have fun. To which Stinger simply nods and tells his team to form up. So Stinger descends onto, well, I guess you could say the platform or the walkway that the prisoners have. And this is where Sideswipe simply looks at his brother and simply states, how could you? How could you side with the enemy? To which Sunstreaker simply states, how could you side with the actual enemy? You saw the footage. You saw the memory banks. Everything up there was true. That's not the point. What they did was, well, wrong. This wasn't justice. It was simply vengeance. To which Shadow Striker says, really, Autobot? Really? Isn't there a fine line between betraying your allies too? Or are you guys simply too blind to simply accept that? And this is where we actually see Megatron just looking in the back and just laughing at this because he's enjoying and hearing every single, dialogue that Soundwave is pretty much broadcasting to him, obviously. But this is where Shadow Striker catches up to Stinger and she places a hand on his arm and she asks him, hey, you okay? I know I really can't read your facial expression because, you don't have too much of a face, but are you all right? To which Stinger actually laughs at this and says, yeah, I'm fine. Kind of elated more than anything. I actually feel better about myself. However, my job is simply not done just yet. I need to find him. Impactor, Roadbuster, and the entire High Council. They all still need to pay for what they've done. Betrayal on such a level does not rest. It simply evolves and grows. And I will not stop until they are all dead. And this is where he tells the Constructicons to keep the Autobot back line moving. To a Scrapper is like, yes sir, and simply instructs Longhaul to make sure everyone's moving at optimal pace here. And plus, the Constructicons would definitely be in the back because I doubt you would try to rebel or try to make a move when an entire combiner could be right behind you at a moment's notice. And this is where they actually do reach a clearing in Kaon. They're like very close to the border. However, this is where Stinger actually hears someone talk to him, and it's Orion. And Orion says something baffling. You know nothing of the Autobot cause, Stinger. This betrayal will not go unanswered. And Stinger turns, to which Shadow Striker face palms. Flame War looks away, and Sunstreaker is like, oh damn. He didn't just say it. To which Stinger's like, run that by me again? To which Optimus says, you know nothing of our cause. You chose to fight barbarically in the pits of Kaon as a form of justice, to be judge, jury, and executioner. And this is where before Optimus can finish, a right hook strikes him right in the chassis. Or at least right in the faceplate that is technically his mouth at the same time. And this was Shadow Striker is like, oh my god, you just had to open your mouth. You know, I'm kind of surprised he didn't take out the plasma blade and just stab you in the head. Or just straight up slice your head off. To which Sunstreaker's like, yeah, you know what? That's actually a good point. I actually didn't think about that myself. But in all honesty, Orion, that was idiotic. And this is where Blackout kind of just makes a joke like, and here I thought Lugnut talked too much. To which Lugnut's like, hey, I'm just saying, you do talk too much. I do not talk that much. Yeah, you do. Shut up. To which Sideswipe is now like, hey, get off him. And, you know, struggles against his cuffs. But this is where Flame War like kicks his knee out, makes him kind of like kneel. And this is where Stinger finishes beating Optimus, simply states, you gonna tell me that I don't know anything about the Autobot cause? To which Orion simply states, no. Otherwise, you would have offered a fair trial for Zeta. You would have given him a chance to explain his point of view. And this is where Stinger says, hold on a minute. I know nothing of the Autobot cause. Oh, I know nothing of the Autobot cause. Strongarm, dear, come here. To which Strongarm simply states, yes, sir. And this is where Strongarm pulls out an entire list of Stinger's deeds. All 3,999 deeds, and lists them off. And he gives Orion a simple look and tells Strongarm to stop around like 10 or 20. And he simply states, I've done more for the Autobot cause than you will ever have. Spare me your semantics, new Prime. To which Optimus simply feels the disdain or the taunt behind that tone. And he says, I am no Prime. And to which Stinger simply laughs even harder and states, you're going to be perfect for it. Whether you like it or not, they're going to elect you of all people as Prime. So, next time I see you as a battlefield, on the battlefield, I'll be sure to take your head for your words. And so, the Autobots not only head back to Iacon, free, mind you, but this is where Optimus and the rest of the Autobots walk into the High Council chamber, where Halogen, Illup, or Eliup, or I'm just going to call him Eliup because that's just his name, and Alpha Trion are, and Radbat as well. So this is where Optimus or Orion simply asks them, is it true? Did you do it? To which Zeta goes quiet, but then Orion continues, did you betray one of our greatest soldiers out of fear? And Alpha Trion looks him dead in the optics and states, yes, I did. I saw it in the future, and I thought killing him would be the better outcome rather than leaving him. And this is where RC simply states, so you created the enemy rather than simply, oh, I don't know, perhaps talking to him about it, perhaps maybe not doing it, and he would have never sided with them. To which this is where Alpha Trion simply states, hold your tongue, young one. You do not address a Prime in such a manner. To which RC simply looks at him and states, that has lost meaning lately. Megatronus, Liege Maximo, now Zeta Prime, and now you. Or should we say you, then Zeta Prime. And this is where Halogen simply states, silence. You will all report to your posts, and we will prepare for war. And to which Cliff Jumper and Jazz look at each other, and this is where Cliff Jumper is like, you expect us to help you? After everything you did? They're coming for you. And Stinger's coming hard with his vengeance. And this is where Eliab simply states, then he'll just have to get through you. You all know your cause, and you guys all know your duty. Don't you want to go back to the way things were? Go back to what your lives were as well? By the way, congratulations on your new promotion, Optimus Prime. And so this is where the Autobots simply go quiet for a moment. And this is where Optimus simply states, Autobots, prepare our defenses. To which Alpha Trion says, very good. Now, run along, Autobots. We will have to discuss everything later, once we win this war once and for all. And this is where RC simply states, you're not winning. And I know good and well you guys are going to regret what you've done to him. And this is where RC storms off, with the other Autobots following suit as they now prepare their defenses. We then go back to Kaon, and well, this is where we actually see the War Room. Kind of Megatron's main room, but it's the War Room regardless. And this is where we see Megatron, Soundwave, Onslaught, Starscream, and Stinger all discussing their plans. They know they now have the Omega signal, not the Omega key this timeline, the Omega signal. And they know that they're going to have to deal with the Guardian very soon. And to which Megatron simply states, "We need to lure Omega Supreme to an open area where we can easily contain him and use my Dark Energon powers to corrupt him." To which Stinger pretty much points out the obvious area, kind of the same one as in canon, but does state they will have to get the anti-air guns and make sure to maintain them. To which Soundwave simply states, in order to get through this, that they'll have to go through an underground system, to which Megatron, him, and Breakdown can easily do. However, there's still a little bit of an issue here, and this is where Onslaught simply points it out. "Yeah, I understand. We still have to get through blockades, and knowing the High Council, and now that they're going to be fighting desperately, this means that we are going to have to deal with a lot more destroyers than the original." And this is where he simply states, "Well, we got two combiners, right?" Or Stinger simply states, "Well, we got two combiners, Devastator and Bruticus. Then me and my team can also just simply go into the High Council chamber and pick them off. But this means that one other thing needs to be done." And Starscream simply states, "Yes, securing the air cannons. I can handle it." To which Stinger taunts him, "You sure? Normally you run away from fights, Starscream. Or have our past encounters not been humbling enough for you?" To which Megatron says, "Enough of your inane prattle, Stinger. Albeit he does have a point, Starscream. If you retreat, I will execute you. But right now we need to prepare. For once the Autobots are on the back foot, and this mercy will be their last." Picking up the next day, we have the Iacon raid. The Autobots have already had, their defenses up and everything, and so everything kind of goes the same, except we go to a Decepticon dropship where Stinger and his team are simply arguing, or at least half of them are arguing, with Flamor saying, "Dude, you can't fly for scrap on here." And Blackout's like, "If you don't shut up, I can't fly." And then Lugnut's like, "Just give me the controller, I can do it." And so now all three of them are fighting over the controller. And this is where Sunstreaker's in the back like, "Oh my gosh, I think we're gonna die. And this is supposed to be my first mission. We're just gonna die here, aren't we?" To which Shadow Striker's like, "Yeah, maybe, just maybe. Only if we could not get shot down, we might be able to make it." And this is where she turns to Stinger and asks him, "Is he okay?" "Yeah, I'm fine." And "Oh yeah, just brace for impact in 3, 2, 1, boom." And so this is where they do crash in Iacon, unfortunately. And well, they get out, and Stinger immediately smacks Flamor in the back of her head, stating, "Next time, let him fly." To which Blackout was like, "Thank you, sir. Gosh, you guys don't understand how hard and difficult it is to work with you whack jobs. No offense, sir." To which Stinger looks at him and like, "I'm not offended by it. It's clearly you're not talking about me. Are you?" No, sir. I'm totally not talking about you." "Good. So let's shape up. Let's get moving. We got to meet Devastator pretty soon. So transform and let's go." So this is where they would definitely meet up with Devastator, who I definitely would say is in like the center area of Iacon, and he's straight up demolishing the air defenses, straight up destroying aerial bots. We see Devastator tearing it up. Absolutely breathtaking. His destruction, his pummeling of the other Autobots and stuff like that. However, below him is another group, the Combaticons. And this is where Vortex is like, "Geez, where is he? He should be here by now." To which Brawl is like, I don't mind if he takes longer. More Autobots to kill." To which Swindle's like, "Ugh, I can't even loot their bodies. They don't even have anything valuable." Guess the cause broke more than just that, huh? And so this is where they hear an engine, and well, Stinger transforms and immediately greets Onslaught with a Cybertronian dap. To which Onslaught's like, ah, finally, you're here. We've actually managed to corner one of the High Council members. To which Stinger asks, who is it? Onslaught goes, Alpha Trion. The very last one that's here, apparently. Halogen and, well, Eliup are not here. Oh, wait, not Eliup. Sigil. Excuse me, I actually found out the name. It was actually Sigil. And Stinger's like, good. Go ahead and regroup with Megatron to handle Omega Supreme. To which Onslaught's like, all right, cool. Yeah, we'll head over there right now. Combaticons, let's move. And so as Stinger looks down, he sees Roadbuster and Whirl, two wreckers tearing apart the Decepticon drone forces and whatever left. However, he's looking around and he obviously sees them, but he's not really caring too much for Whirl. But Roadbuster, in particular, he sees red. He remembers what he did. The way he grabbed Skids and crushed him like he was absolutely nothing. And it just infuriates him. However, this is where he sees an explosion go off, and then someone's running. It's Impactor, running away from the conflict, stating they won't be getting him today. And this does kind of enrage Stinger a bit, but he calms himself down, knowing good and well he has a job to do. And this is where he tells his team to attack. And so his team descends, straight up tearing through any of the Autobot drones left before confronting Whirl and Roadbuster. With Flamewar saying, well, this ought to be fun, and simply just lunges at him, while Stinger comes right from behind as well. Flamewar trips him up, and Stinger just drop kicks him. And then he says, Lugnut, now. So, everyone's favorite walking newt comes down with, his grand and glorious glazing nuke, straight up bathing everyone in its glory as it sends both Roadbuster and Whirl flying back into the wall. Now, as any drones of the Autobots are pretty much taken care of, this is where Stinger pretty much tells the group to secure the area and has Blackout go ahead and simply hack the door. And so Stinger says, well, been a while, hasn't it, Roadbuster? Seems like I finally got you. And so this is where Shadow Striker walks up next to him and asks him, so, what's the plan? You gonna crush him like he did Skids? Or are you gonna just make him die and suffer slowly? To which Stinger does think to himself, he's like, darling, you got some good ones. But this is where Whirl tries to get up, and Strongarm simply shoots him with her blaster. However, it seems the safety was on, so he's not dead. And Stinger looks at her like, safety? To his strong arms like, dag nabbit. Sorry, sir, I didn't mean to have the safety on. I did think it was going to kill him, but it seemed to just barely even killed him. I do apologize. To which Stinger simply, pats her on the shoulder and says, nah, no worries. We're not killing anyone that's not needed. However, this one over here definitely deserves it. And this is where Flame War suggests, ooh, let me interrogate him. Let me torture him. Let me torture him to death. Please, 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 Commander, please. I want to see him squeal and beg. To which Stinger's like, no. I'll give that for you another time. Constructicons form up. And this is where they simply form Devastator, towering right over Stinger as he looks at Roadbuster. And Roadbuster picks up what's going on now. He picks up and he's like, no. Please. Wait, we can talk about this. I was just following orders. You don't have to do this, man. I mean, think about the good you could possibly do. And he says this as he's reaching for his gun, but this is where Sunstreaker shoots him and, shoots the gun and pretty much blows it up. And he says, not so fast. And this is where Stinger simply states, really? You were still going to try to kill me. One of the few things I've had time to really think about Roadbuster, I had time to really think about just how you crushed my best friend. To which Flame was like, ooh, he's about to monologue. This is about to get good. Oh, I got to sit down and watch this. To which she kind of just sits on like a dead Autobot trooper as Stinger goes on. But now, back to the serious moment. Stinger tells him the way Skids and I met. It was during one of my racing exhibits, and he was cleaning out one of my, I guess you could say, Bay areas, and me and him got along instantly. So we started hanging out after every race. But then I met Nautica, and I helped him out and helped them get together. But you took them from me. You took the only Cybertronian that actually saw me for me. Not the racer that I was, but for the Cybertronian that I was. The kind soul that actually was genuine. But now, he's dead. And now you're going to know how it feels. Devastator, crush him like a ball. And so this is where Devastator grabs him, and Stinger and the rest of them watch as you hear the mangled metal, the wretched screams of Roadbuster, as Devastator, even carefully, while it is aggressive, it is still gentle enough to where he simply molds him into a ball and then drops him into Stinger's hand. And it's like, such a satisfying thing to see. Flamemore, go long. To which Flamemore actually just, rushes at it and punts Roadbuster's corpse. She just punts Roadbuster's corpse like into a whole another area. And this is where Blackout states, "Sir, the chamber's open." Good, good. Let's get this over with. Lugnut proceed to bust the door wide open, to which Lugnut is like, "Yes, sir." And well, this is where we actually see why the nuclear punch is not used in close quarters range, to which it actually does a blowback that sends Lugnut and the rest of the group flying, and he's like, "Dude, just punch it naturally." And so when Lugnut does it again and punches the door open naturally, this is where they're greeted by destroyers. 3 to be exact. And Sting is like, "Aw, they actually prepared themselves. It's a shame that I've killed these guys under the Decepticons." Or I killed the Decepticons versions quite frequently. To which Shadow Strike is like, "Yeah, you got quite the track record apparently." "Oh, darling, don't bug me. Go ahead, have your fun, team. Flame War, go crazy. And Blackout, please go ahead and work on the next door. And the Constructicons, please, pick your drone and have fun. I'll take this one with Shadow Striker." So, the group actually takes on their drones, while Blackout's just working like, So, Flame War kills hers viciously, and just straight up xenomorphs that dude. And Stinger pretty much kills his by him slicing off the limbs of it, while Shadow Striker goes for the headshot. And then Blackout's like, "Well, dang. Pretty efficient teamwork we got here, isn't it, sir?" But this is where the door opens. And Stinger's like, "Yeah, can't agree more. But now, let's get this done. Sunstreaker, if you don't mind, plant the room with any solar explosives you got." To which, this is what Sunstreaker actually begins to do. Using his solar rockets, he actually plants multiple around the area. And this is where they pretty much see Alpha Trion standing with Alito 1 and Smokescreen ready for combat. And this is where they pretty much just are, they're all battle ready. And Smokescreen was like, "Yeah, finally, some action. I've been waiting for this all day." To which Alita says, "Stand down." Alita's trying to tell him, like, "No, stand down, rookie. We do not have the time for this. Let's try and find a way to get out of this without actually dying." However, Smokescreen is like, "Nah, I got this. Let me just show him how it's done." To which Alpha Trion is like, "Very well, young soldier. You want to prove yourself today? Go. Defeat them. Defeat Stinger and prove you are worthy of an elite god commander position." To which Smokescreen is the first one to rush at the group, with the group actually looking at each other, and Long Haul is just like, do we kill him?" To which Stinger's like, no, I remember him from the academy. He was a rebellious upstart, but he really is in trouble. Watch this. So Stinger steps forward, and Smokescreen runs at him. blasting him. Now, obviously, this doesn't harm Stinger because, he is a bit more built, if you will. And, well, this is where Alita is telling him, no, 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 don't do it. Don't do it. Smokescreen, don't get close. And so when he realizes that, his blaster isn't working, Smokescreen lunges at him, saying, you're going to pay for what you did, you traitor, and simply just like lunges at him. However, this is where Stinger simply sidesteps the first blow, sidesteps the next, and he's like, kid, you are the worst trained cadet I've ever seen. You think you really gonna make Elite Guard with that? And this is where he simply spins and backhands Smokescreen into the wall, knocking him out, and says, strong arm, cuff him. Yes, sir. And so she cuffs Smokescreen pretty easily. To which Shadow Striker and Flame War are both laughing, like hysterically, like, geez, you didn't have to do the rookie like that. I mean, yeah, he kind of had it coming, but still. To which Stinger's like, I've trained better elite guardsmen in my years. Just look at Sunstreaker and Strongarm, the best soldiers and best comrades I could have ever had. However, this is where he actually blocks an incoming punch from Alita. And he looks at her and is like, so you're the new Elite Guard commander. Huh. I was actually expecting Ultra Magnus. To which he says, what? No offense, Ariel, but you're not disciplined enough for this position. Always so quick, always so eager, always easy to anger. And Ariel, or Alita, proves his point. She swings at him with a vicious rage. And this is where Stinger parries her blow, spins, and takes out his plasma blade and cuts her. Deep enough to where her spark is somewhat visible. However, he says, Blackout, tend to her. Yes, sir. And so Blackout actually does begin to work on Alita 1 and actually gets her stabilized so that she doesn't die. To which Stinger then simply asks Alpha Trion, is he really gonna put up a fight after this? And Alita's like, no, Alpha Trion, retreat. Please get out of here. You have to go. You have to. And kind of just passes out. She's not dead, but again, the pain and sensation of having her, chest literally ripped all open is just simply too much. And this is where he tells the Constructicons to hold him. And so Alphatron tries to fight, but again, the Constructicons simply just taunt the man before Overhaul and Mixmaster straight up just start beating on him, and Bone Crusher just slams him into the ground before they bring him to Stinger. And this is where he simply looks at him as like, one of the last of the 13 original primes. How unfortunate. To which Alpha Trion simply states, I knew you were trouble. I knew you would betray us. To which the Constructicons and the rest of the team look like, are we not talking about the same person real quick? Hold up, wait. Hey, Stinger, you, big boss, you hear this? To which Alphatron is like, my decision to destroy you was rash, yes. But look at what you become. And to which Stinger simply laughs and chops off one of his arms. And this is where he states, I became what you made me. You were so concerned about me being a threat that with all that foresight, you didn't think about how this would even happen. To which Alpha Trion goes quiet. And this is where Stinger's like, look, I'm not going to beat around the bush with you. Am I going to kill you? No. Am I going to let you live? No. But I need something from you. You're going to give me the information on where Halogen and Sigil are. To which Alpha Trion says, absolutely not. You will not destroy all the hard work that we created. You will not destroy the caste system. The same system that's been keeping Cybertronians oppressed for years? Crazy how the Autobots lack this much accountability. But you know what? Flame War, he's all yours. To which she simply ignites her hands and she says, oh yeah, I'm going to enjoy this. And so this is where everyone kind of just leans against the wall. And, well, let's just say Flame War's torture methods are so stunning that the Constructicons can make facial expressions from it. And this is where Shadow Striker's like, yeah, that's my sister. She's a little unhinged. And this is where Blackout is like, oh, a little? And Sunstreaker's like, dang, yeah, I definitely gotta agree on that. That is definitely not some subtle unhingedness. And so this is where they both get the information out of Alpha Trion, or Flamer gets the information out of Alpha Trion. However, Stinger receives a transmission from Megatron. And this is where he simply asks, "Oh, Lord Megatron, I've just located and dispatched one of the High Council members. Good. Right now, I need you here immediately. Omega Supreme is vastly overwhelming, and right now, the sky or the anti-air guns are not working. We need you here stat." To which Flamor says, "All right, we got all the information we need about where the High Council is. An invisible ship in Cybertron's orbit." To which Stinger says, "Great. All right, team, let's transform and move to Megatron's coordinates." Wham! That's what happens when Devastator slams into the back of Omega Supreme, telling him Devastator would not allow you to destroy Megatron. To which Omega Supreme simply states, "New target acquired. Designation Devastator." And the two begin slugging it out, with Megatron saying, "Ah, finally, reinforcements have arrived." To which Breakdown is like, "Oh, thank God. Oh, I thought we were gonna die." And we actually see Omega Supreme and Devastator just going back and forth, back and forth. Omega Supreme tries to blast him. Nah, he simply slams him onto the ground. Then he slams Devastator into a wall and tries to get a solid grip on him so he can get that other arm cannon in, right? However, Devastator actually uses this opportunity to actually bury himself deeper into the wall and then grabs one of the few pillars on top and smashes it on top of Omega Supreme. The two simply just start battering each other over and over. Over and over, over and over again. The best rock'em sock'em fight you could imagine. And this is where Stinger and the rest of his team finally come in, saying, "Megatron, oh, glad you're alive. So, how did the anti-air gun plan go?" To which Megatron looks at him like, "If you don't save me, you're inane prattle, Commander. Right now, we need to subdue him. I need to infect him with dark energon so that I can control him." And this where Stinger's like, okay, I understand that, but where's Starscream? To which Starscream, Skywarp, and Thundercracker both land saying that the airways are secure, but right now we need to figure out how to take him down. To which Stinger goes like, "Oh, I thought you kind of had that figured out, Air Commander." To which Megatron simply tells them, "Silence, both of you. Right now, we need to take him down. Every Decepticon, open fire on Omega Supreme." And so, every Decepticon there just straight up opens fire, just tears apart at Omega Supreme, utilizing every opportunity they can in order to, get it. However, this is where Omega Supreme manages to grab Devastator, because keep in mind, he's one of the few main pieces here, and he simply states, "Operation Adapted To," and throws him at the Decepticons, with Megatron and Stinger being pinned under his hand, while the rest of them are kind of just, knocked all over the place. And this is where they both look in absolute disbelief as they're both trying to get free, and Omega Supreme simply states, "Targets acquired, commencing termination," and launches a devastating energy blast at Megatron and Stinger. However, it is not their time. No. You see, this is where they hear, "Megatron, no!" And, well, Lugnut jumps in front of the blast, taking the full force and full brunt of it. And unfortunately, this does kill Lugnut. The Constructicons manage to not only awaken, but disassemble as well, seeing their fallen comrade in Stinger's arms. And Stinger simply holds Lugnut up, telling him, "Oh, no, not you, you great big glazer. Don't die on me here, I can't lose another friend." And this is where Lugnut simply states, he was happy. He was happy not only to serve the Decepticon cause, but to serve the glorious reign of Megatron, and to serve as one of the first Deathbringers, to bring a happy face To you, my commander. And he goes offline, with Megatron saying, now use that fuel, use that anger, and destroy, or at least dismantle Omega Supreme. So, Stinger's visor goes from again green to absolute red, and he states, I'll give you the opening, but you better take that shot, Megatron. To which Stinger and Megatron both stand next to each other, side by side, in the most aura-farming positions possible. Stinger's Bloodstorm cannon out and ready, while Megatron prepares his Dark Energon blast, ready to fully corrupt him. And this is where Soundwave gives him the call. 3, 2, 1, go. And this is where Stinger fires the full force of his Bloodstorm cannon into Omega Supreme's chest, just straight up blowing the shielding area off completely. This causes Omega Supreme to drop to his knees, and Megatron, seeing the opportunity, hits that man with a full force Dark Energon blast, fully corrupting him and now bending him to his will. And Megatron simply laughs. He is mine, the key to Cybertron's core and to the edge of this war, and the energon flow of this planet are mine. Quickly, Decepticons, secure him. Constructicons, Combaticons. To which both teams simply move, and they secure Omega Supreme, while Megatron utilizes his Dark Energon manipulation to bend Omega Supreme to his will. And eventually, it does work. And he says, yes, yes, very good, very good. You are now mine to command, Omega Supreme. You will take us to the core, and you will open it. For I have plans for this planet, and I shall see it through. So, this is where the Decepticons begin moving. However, Soundwave simply grabs Stinger by the shoulder and says, incoming transmission for you. And this is where Stinger looks at him. For me? Who's trying to call me? And this is where Soundwave simply shows a hologram of RC. She simply states, hey, I don't know if you're getting this, but we need to talk. It's about Bumblebee. He's alright, don't worry. He's still fine. But we need to talk about something. You need to know the truth. And I'll be willing to help you get it by any means necessary. And so this is where Stinger thinks to his brother how he lost his voice box. He doesn't know for sure if they did it, but he feels like he knows it's them. And this is where Stinger simply states, alright, he's going to the location. To which, while Megatron, trusts him enough to really not get himself into trouble and to get himself out, in all honesty, this is where Blackout simply interjects, showing his concern for his commander. You sure you want to go alone? One of us could go with you, Besides, it wouldn't be too much trouble, right? It's just one Autobot. To which he says he's known RC for a while, even before or during the days of the war. And believe it or not, she wouldn't be doing this without a reason. And who knows, maybe we'll have a new squad member. But for right now, please tend to our comrade and honor Lugnut. And so, Stinger transforms into his vehicle mode and drives off to meet RC at the location. And because of how he knows Iacon, I'm gonna say it takes him, at the very least, 6 minutes tops, getting to the area where they meet by a disabled Dark Energon bomber. And she says, hey, how you been? So his Stinger's like, good, how are you? Surprised Jazz isn't with you. I thought he would really be in on this. To which RC simply states, he's been kind of busy with his own thing. And this is where RC simply states, so, Decepticon now, huh? And, they both kind of laugh, but again, it's kind of that friendship that's still there, that they still, sense and everything. And Stinger's like, yeah, but, you ain't got to worry about me. I still have a moral code and a moral compass, so I hope I can keep it in check. Still friends? To which RC's like, yeah, still friends. But you're definitely going to want to see this. I've actually managed to get into Bumblebee's processor as he's still recovering. And so he managed to give me this because of, how close we all are. And she shows it. Bumblebee's latest memories, where Impactor was the one to crush his voice box. And Stinger sees this, and he sees Bumblebee's fear. He almost feels it even. And he sees how Bumblebee was left there, and Impactor laughing about it, saying, "Can't have you talking about," or people trying to wonder how Stinger actually got betrayed in the first place, right? Sorry, kid. And this is where RC simply states, we could easily take the fight to them. I know where they are. We could easily exploit it. Even with all the other Autobots, you and I should be able to. However, Stinger simply touches her shoulder and simply says, no, not now. To which he's like, what do you mean, not now? To which Stinger simply states, I wouldn't put you at risk. Right now, you are still a friend. And I'm, well, guaranteeing your safety. To which RC is like, okay, so what do you want me to do? I mean, we can't just let them, just roam around freely. And Stinger pretty much hands her a private communicator. As of right now, you're a Deathbringer. You'll be my spy until further notice. I will guarantee your protection no matter what. Deal? And RC thinks to admit it. She's really betraying the cause. But again, what cause is she really, fighting for? And this is where she simply states, deal. However, this is where Stinger receives a communication. He says, hold on a minute. What? What's going on? I'm on my way. However, we fast forward a couple minutes later, or a couple minutes earlier, and we were at the core, where Megatron is bringing dark energon emitters, along with the Combaticons, Barricade, and the rest of the Deathbringers and stuff like that. And, well, he simply tells them to get the energon ready. They're going to change this war forever. To which Shadow Striker is like, wait a minute. Hold on. Dark energon as the natural flow of Cybertron? Megatron, wait a minute. We really should think about this. And Megatron turns to look at her. Are you questioning your commander? Are you questioning your leader? How dare you? To which Blackout interjects, wait, Megatron, if we could explain. Considering the fact that the core itself should be connected to Primus, right? Primus has been our energon flow for years. Why would we change it to the blood of Unicron? It would ultimately contradict itself and likely cause the planet to go into a shutdown. To which Megatron says, lies. There is no way we would be able to go through to this. Once we have our dark energon, we will all be powerful as we should. To which Megatron, or Blackout, simply states, Lord Megatron, I hate to say this, but that is madness. There should be no reason we're using this. And this gets the other Decepticons thinking, and they're talking amongst themselves. Even Soundwave is talking to Onslaught about this. And Megatron simply states, so you're defying me. That's what it is. And this is where we see his fusion cannon charge up and actually points it at the team. And this is where Sunstreak is like, dang, we really about to die again. I thought the jet was bad enough. However, this is where Stinger comes in, and not only at a breaknecking speed, like if I had to really say how fast he was going, dude would probably look like a red blur. And this is where Flame War is like, aw, heck yeah, the commander's back. And so Stinger jumps up, transforms, and lands right in front of Megatron, looking him dead in the eye as he points his Bloodstorm cannon at him and tells him, disarm those generators now. Megatron points his cannon at him. Are you usurping me? To which Stinger looks at him fully in the optics. No, he's not. But right now, I am challenging your thinking process. Dark Energon corrupts and destroys. You are a lucky exception, Megatron. This is our planet, our home. And Megatron simply tells him, how dare you? No, how dare you? Someone who fought for the ending of the caste system, now corrupted by some dark energon? Are you really going to allow this to happen? To a Shadow Striker thinking to herself, dang, so hot at the same time. And this is where we see the other Decepticons kind of looking at him, and they're like, Megatron, he's right. This can't happen. And so this is where we actually do see some of the Decepticons back away from the generators, not even bothering to turn them on. To which Stinger says, see, if everyone else is thinking logically, Megatron, why can't you? Think of Lugnut. Think of all that he has sacrificed. From the glazing, to the glazing, to the literal glazing of Lugnut. This man believed in you because of everything you said and was blindly devoted to you. Me, however, I'm not. I am devoted to the cause you bring, to the cause that you started, to the cause that gave me a second chance and gave me my vengeance. To which Megatron states, and your vengeance is not even done. And yet here you are, and then Stinger simply cuts him off again. No, here you are about to make the biggest mistake of your life. There are simple means, simple methods. And this is where Soundwave simply states something. He's right, Megatron. And Megatron looks at Soundwave like, even you? To which Soundwave is like, yes, even me, Lord Megatron. This is wrong. And this is where Stinger simply drops his cannon and looks Megatron in the optics. You have the power, but you lack the wisdom that is truly needed, Megatron. You were a gladiator, yes, but let us help you. Let us be the ones to help guide you and make that future. And this is where Blackout simply states there is a better way. We could regulate the flow of Energon. Simply cut it off from the Autobot side and permanently give it to ours. It'll take some time, but I do need Shockwave's help in order to get it done. To which Megatron thinks to himself, even his most loyal follower told him it was wrong. And maybe they're right. And Megatron's like, very well, commence the operation. To which Onslaught claps Stinger on the shoulder and says, good job, Commander. You actually survived. To which Onslaught's like, you think you could take him in an actual fight, though? To which Stinger's like, yeah, I could. Definitely could go either way, but I'm pretty confident I might be able to take him. But this is where Onslaught states, okay, so what now? To which Stinger states now he's going to head back to Kaon with Megatron. Not only to make sure he's purged of his Dark Energon, but he's got a High Council ship to find. 1 day later, a day after Cybertron's Energon flow has been regulated into Kaon only. And, well, we're on the High Council ship with Sigil saying, you think they found us? No. They couldn't have found us, right? We'll be safe here. We'll be safe here. The Autobots will win the war, and then we'll go back to the way things were. To which Halogen's like, yeah. Besides, we got nothing more than Marauders, some Autobot Titans, and some shotgunners. We'll be all right. We got the latest army and stuff like that. We don't need anything. We don't need anyone else. Just us up here and our army. Meanwhile, back in Kaon, this is where we see the Decepticons repairing themselves. And, well, there's a dropship simply getting ready. It's, loading troops and loading any weaponry that they need. However, this is where we see the team that's going. Stinger, the Constructicons, Blackout, and Shadow Striker. Flame War, Strong Arm, and Sunstreaker are all going to be on Kaon duty for a while, especially after their incident with Megatron. So while he is purged of his Dark Energon, he's not too happy. However, this is where they're joined by someone else, the explosives expert, Dreadwing. And this is where he and Stinger, when they both see each other, they walk up and they hit another Cybertronian dab, with Stinger saying, it's an honor, really, to work with someone like you. Someone who still embodies the old ways of the Decepticon cause. And I definitely hope to see your explosions in action. To which Dreadwing says, no, but the honor is mine. Your tactics already turned the tide in the war for our favor. And I've never met anyone who was willing to stand up and change Megatron for the better. To which Stinger says, come on, all in a day's work. But I am looking for new recruits. In honor of Lugnut's death, I will not have anyone feel the muscle spot. However, you are still pretty strong. However, your explosives are highly recommended. To which Dreadwing simply states, I will be glad or be honored to join your team. And this is where Stinger simply states, live through this day and impress me with those explosives, and you have my word, you'll get a spot. And so, this is where the dropship takes off, with Blackout actually being able to pilot it smoothly this time because he does not have Flame War breathing down his neck. And so, as they're already up in space, Shadow Striker touches Stinger's arm and asks him, hey, you alright? This is it. One of the few final pieces in your vengeance, in your quest, in your story. You think it's gonna just end here? To which Stinger simply states, nah, he's still got Impactor. And he actually does want to know what this Prime is like. And he actually hopes his brother maybe could forgive him for not really being able to get in Iacon and check on him for all these years, or for the term of the war. To which the Constructicon simply asks him, alright, big boss, what's the plan? And so this is where Stinger pretty much holds out a device. And he goes back to the flashback, or the time where he met RC. I guess you could say a day ago. To which RC says, here, take this. To which Stinger looks at it. Wait a minute. An Autobot signal? What's this for? To which RC says, well, one or two things. Number one, you should be able to fool the sensors on the High Council's ship, and they should be able to allow you in. And number two, in case you ever need help again. And so, the flashback will cut, with Stinger simply thanking RC. And, well, he thinks to himself, they're going to use this. We're going to use this. And once we do, we're going to destroy everything on there. No drone left alive. No High Council member surviving. Or maybe just one. And this is where they used a signal, and it works. The sensors of the High Council ship are fooled, and it uncloaks itself. And this is where the drones are like, oh no, they found us. Wait, it's only a single dropship? Man, this is about to be boom. The drone's head gets taken off. Shadow Striker is already out in her position, sniping the drones left and right. Boom, triple kill. Boom, quadruple kill. Boom, pentakill. Boom. Okay, I don't know what's after that. Boom. So, all the drones begin getting sniped one by one as the ship actually manages to, well, land in the loading bay. And, well, this is where they actually step out and see everything. Drones of every kind of caliber, even the new ones like the Enforcers, to which even Stinger's like, huh, that's new. Actually quite interesting, actually. Matter of fact, I'm going to send that to Shockwave real quick. Let me just take a visor pick here. And this is where he tells Dreadwing to go. And this is where Dreadwing says, you ready? To which Blackout says, indeed, let's get moving. And so both of them run off. And this is where, obviously, the battle begins, where the drones are fighting against the Constructicons, Stinger, and Shadow Striker. Shadow Striker's more so near the ship, still kind of, sniping and stuff, as she doesn't want them to, raid the ship and damage it. And this is where Scrapper simply states, what's your orders, Commander? To which Stinger simply gets out his plasma blade. Stinger gets out his plasma blade, and he says, you know what to do, Constructicons. Combine and annihilate. To which he says, heck yeah, Constructicons, form Devastator. And well, the Constructicons form Devastator, and Stinger and them straight up crash out. And when I mean they straight up annihilate these drones, it looks way worse than what Optimus Prime did in Dark of the Moon. I'm talking, they start just flailing, whirlwind chopping, stomping, crushing. They even do a fastball special into a Titan. Absolute devious. And so this is where Hologen is looking at the camera. Is like, no, 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 they're here. Not after everything we've been through. We can we even make it out of this? To which Sigil's like, well, we should be able to. There's no way they're gonna find out we're here, right? I mean, we're in the highest area. There's no way. However, this is where a loud explosion goes off, and they are both flung to the floor. And this is where they see Blackout and Dreadwing. Blackout simply states, well, 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 look at what we have here. Two of the biggest cowards left in history. To which Halogen's like, wait. Maybe we could cut a deal. Yeah. We could easily cut a deal. You could let us go. You could let me and Sigil go. To which Dreadwing is like, and what? Simply run away from the war, hoping the Autobots would win, and then you could reclaim Cybertron and try to reinforce the caste system. To which Sigil's like, no, we would never do that. But Alpha Trion, he would have been the one to do it. So we could give you him, as he was the original creator of it anyway. It was really his idea. To which Dreadwing simply laughs like, you Autobots, throwing yourselves under the bus while also throwing each other. Alpha Trion's already dead. And so this is where Blackout actually plays a holographic showing of what Flame Lord did to him, and it terrifies the High Council. And so after ending it, he simply contacts Stinger and simply states, sir, we have a proposition. To which Stinger, just finishing off the last drone, covered in dripping energon, simply asks them, or, gets to explain the situation and says, bring them here. However, this is where Shadow Striker walks over to him, and she says, you look really good covered in the enemy's energon. And to which, this is where the Constructicons simply disassemble, and they're just like, oh my gosh, the sexual tension here is just absolutely baffling. Can you guys just make out already? And this is where they both kind of just look at the Constructicons like, dang, okay, just ruined the moment. However, Stinger's like, yeah, you know what? Might as well. So Stinger pretty much grabs Shadow Striker by the waist, and that would be their actual first kiss. With Scrapper saying, I love a happy ending to a nice work. Don't you do, boys? To which all the Constructicons are like, yeah, most of the time. Of course, you gotta ruin the Overlord. Overload, excuse me. But that's not the best part about this here. No. This is where Halogen and Sigil are thrown at the feet of Stinger by Blackout and Dreadwing. With Blackout saying, it's about time you two hooked up. Anywho, here you go, boss. 2 High Council members. And you won't believe they had the audacity to really bargain with us. To which Dreadwing simply states, by the way, the ship is rigged to blow. Everything is surrounding the core, and you should be impressed very soon. Now, what should we do with them? To which this is where Shadow Striker begins to think, well, let's see. You did rip out Zeta Prime's spine, so that's one way you killed somebody. And then Blackout's like, yeah. Then you sliced Rotor Storm in half, and I mean, whew. Sliced him in half, you did. And this is where the Constructicons are like, yeah, and then in the last one, you kind of let me ball up Roadbuster and just turn him into a ball like he did your boy Skids. Commander, you really got some creative ways of killing people, but 2 at the same time? I don't know. To which he's like, yeah, and I did let Flame Lord get the last one, but I got a question for you. To which Halogen's like, what? What do you want? Come on now. For former Elite Guard Commander, think of what Die Atlas would think. And so this is where Blackout is like, oh crap, you did not just say that. And Stinger begins pummeling the council member for a good bit. And Sigil's like, oh my gosh, why? Why would you say that? But Stinger doesn't go all the way. He doesn't kill him. He simply states, quick question for both of you real quick. Which one's the smartest? And Sigil's like, I am. Very good. And so he grabs Halogen by his head and simply Mortal Kombat spine rips him. And this is where Shadow Striker is like, dang. Okay, you're definitely teaching me that later. And this is where Dreadwing is like, a bit simple, but I mean, definitely different. How do you come up with so many creative ways? To which Stinger's like, I actually have a lot of time. But this is where they state that Sigil will live. And they take him back to Kaon. But he is cuffed, obviously. And Sigil pretty much states, oh, thank you. Oh, thank you so much for sparing me. I will not disappoint the Decepticon cause. I will be a great asset, a great member. My information will be invaluable to you all. But this is where he hears a voice as they land, and he says, that is exactly what I'm hoping for. And this is where Shockwave simply steps out from the Kaon gates. And Sigil's like, wait, what? No, no. You know what he's gonna do to me. You said I would live. We made a deal. My intelligence for my life. And this is where Stinger's like, hold on now. I'm keeping my promise that I'm not going to kill you. Oh, but Shockwave has a plethora of ways for experimentations to commence. And Dreadwing, seeing Sigil is about to run, takes his sword and slices off his leg and simply states, now. We don't want to disappoint our partner now, do we? And Shockwave simply states, I appreciate you, Commander. And grabs Sigil by his head and drags him off, with Sigil screaming, no, no, no! And this is where we would end it off here, you guys. Please comment down below, like and subscribe and share with your friends. And I'll see you guys for the Fall of Cybertron segment. How did you guys feel about this? Did you guys like the, section and stuff like that? And let me know what you guys think about Dreadwing replacing Lugnut and Lugnut's death. But that's going to be all today, you guys. Please just, leave your thoughts and opinions. I know this part was long, but if you stuck it out to the end, just type in stuck it out in the comment section and tell me what part or what act was your favorite part. But it's going to tell you guys, and y'all have a blessed day. Peace.